All right, Raf Diallo here from RT Sport. On Saturday, Ireland will play Luxembourg in the second game of the World Cup qualifying group. It's not a country we hear about too often from a sports point of view. So to get an insight about them, I'm delighted to be joined by someone I've had the pleasure of chatting to before on the wireless, journalist Bob Hemmen, who will be in Dublin for the game. Bob, first of all, welcome along.
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad, and I presume you're looking forward to coming to Dublin, although obviously with the way the world is now, it's not going to be quite the experience of normal times.
Yeah, it's not that easy. So a lot of COVID testing before flying in, but I guess that's part of our job now.
Yeah, now to get a bit of an insight on Luxembourg first, obviously we're going to get into the Nations League and how that's gone very well. And in terms of the rise in depth as well, we'll touch on. But in terms of expectations in this group, you've obviously Portugal are the favourites, Serbia are the second seeds, Ireland are third seeds, and then you've Azerbaijan and yourselves. What is the expectation there in terms of the maximum that is expected of the team?
I mean, obviously it's a very tough group. So you spoke about Azerbaijan, so I think that could be two games where they were looking to probably win one or two, because they already showed, like you said, in the Nations League that they can beat them. For the rest of the games, I mean, we got to see. I think it's clear that in every game, like Ireland, Serbia, and also Portugal, they will be the clear favorites against Luxembourg. But like they showed already in the past years, there could be at least probably against Ireland or against Serbia, one or two games where you could take 1 point or maybe get a win.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Nations League went quite well and you beat Azerbaijan, also Cyprus and Montenegro. And this was in League C, which is obviously they started out in League D, have got promoted and then held their own. And how much confidence has that given the team that they're able to beat teams that in the past they wouldn't have necessarily been able to even get a point against?
I think a lot. I think the whole campaign was very interesting just to see for them that they could compete against those teams at a regular level, because before they had some good games like against France. But right now they could really see that over a whole group stage they could compete against better teams from, like you said, a higher league than that they played before. At the end they were a little unlucky because they had a bad game in Cyprus. So if things would turn out a little bit better, they could even win the whole group. But in terms of confidence, I think it gives them a lot of confidence, because it's still a young team, and if a young team sees that they can compete on the pitch, it gives them confidence. Yeah.
And in terms of the Nations League itself, the way it's structured, and the fact that that every country is basically playing a team of a similar level, I wonder, has Luxembourg been one of the big beneficiaries of that in a way, rather than, going and playing? Obviously, you had a good result against France one time not so very long ago, but in general, you'd be playing stronger, like the top strong nations, and sometimes the results would be extremely difficult, a bad thrashing. But I wonder, has the Nations League itself been beneficial to a country like Luxembourg?
Yeah, I think for sure it's more interesting for smaller countries than for the big countries, probably. Probably not so much for the fans, but there are no fans at the moment, so that probably doesn't matter. But yeah, for the team that to really go into every game having a chance to take a draw, even win a game, I think that's very interesting. Also for a coach to prepare a team, really knowing, okay, if we have a good game, we can win it. Comparing if you play Portugal, yeah, you can say, okay, we can try not to lose that high, but it's much more tougher to make a result. Yeah.
Yeah, and Luxembourg's manager, Hulse, he has, and I hope I pronounced that okay, but he has been in charge for 11 years. He was previously the under-21 manager, which is a slight reflection on Stephen Kenny, our manager, although in a shorter space of time, because he's only become senior manager very recently. But he plays a 4-1-4-1 traditionally. But what do we know of him as a man manager, as a tactician, outside of formations?
Yeah, so comparing to probably other coaches before in Luxembourg, they were all focused really on the defensive end. So he changed that a lot. So right now, Luxembourg, they try to play football. They try to compete and not get goals. So that's a big difference where you can see. But it's also because he has the players right now to do it. So that has changed a lot. With having those players, you can try to actually play. Like you said, he played in 4-1-4-1, also 4-4-2. So different schemes that he tries and that he has the potential to play with this team. As in terms of personality, he's a very straight guy. So if he's unhappy, he'll tell you. In the past, so in the beginning of his career in the national team, he also criticized some players openly, which he stopped like during the last years. Where now he's really standing up for the team, no matter what the results are. And I think, one of the main reasons why he is successful as a coach is that he has a clear vision of what he wants to see on the pitch.
Yeah, you mentioned Luxembourg have the players now. So who are the key ones that we need to look out from an Irish perspective?
I think in terms of key players, there could be three, I'd say. So first of all, it's Leandro Barreiro. He plays in the Bundesliga for Mainz right now, and he's one of their key players already, even if he's really young. He's, I would say, more than box-to-box player. He runs a lot, tries to win balls for you, can do a little bit of everything. Not so much scoring, but the rest, he's a fighter, so... probably the most talented player is Christopher Martins. He missed a lot of when he is injured, but in terms of potential, he's really, really good. Also, central midfield, can do it offensively, defensively, can play also central defense, could also play offensive midfield, so player that can do a bit of everything. And then the third one would be Gerson Rodriguez. An offensive player that plays for Dynamo Kiev. He played in the Champions League and also the Europa League this year. Very fast player. On a good day, he looks like he could play for Real Madrid. On a bad day, he looks like he should play in the First League of Luxembourg. So, sometimes he's really when he's on it, he's really, really good, and he looks unstoppable. But it's not in every game.
Yeah, as you mentioned, just the Europa League there, of course, Dudelange in 2018-19 became the first club from Luxembourg to qualify for the group stage, which was a huge achievement. And also you mentioned the likes of Barreiro at Mainz. And so there's I suppose at the bottom level, we can see that a number of players are playing in, maybe either in reserve teams or first teams in big leagues or secondary leagues in Europe. And also there's some interesting things happening at club level, which goes to show there's something underpinning the rise of the national team there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points, that more and more players are playing outside of Luxembourg, because still here the level is not that high. So for them it's important to leave the country as early as possible. Like you said, Leandro Barreiro, who went to Mainz at a young age, and he played there. He was in their academy. And that's also what the Football Association in Luxembourg, what they try to do. So they work with those players, but as soon as they get an offer from like a club from Germany or another country, they really try to give them the chance to go there and to get better, because right now that's the only chance they have to really improve.
Yeah, and one of the other interesting things, and I think we spoke about it on the radio about 2 or 3 years ago, when we were last speaking, and it was the football school in Monderkange. And I imagine from the way it's described, it's a bit like Clairefontaine in France, in that you pool a lot of the best players in the country together in a small space. And from what I've read, also the youth teams would play, the club sides or the other youth teams of neighbouring countries as well. So they're getting a lot of good competition early on. And in terms of the coaching, I imagine that the FA and the Luxembourg FA is getting a lot of credit for the work they're doing there.
Yeah, so the idea is really to take the best players, so no matter for which club they play, and to have them into practices the whole week, so they can play with the best guys at their age in Luxembourg, which is quite good for them. Because also in terms of coaching, if you look at the club level, the coaches here, they aren't that professional. So if you can have them all at the FA and practice with the best coaches and the other best players, for sure, that helps to everybody.
Yeah, and I remember when we spoke again, on the radio, you mentioned at the time that in terms of the popularity of football, it's in the south of Luxembourg, so much more than the north in terms of the clubs that are successful. Has the success or the relative success of the national team, has that kind of spread out the interest in the country in terms of football kind of becoming a lot more popular? It's
tough to say, because really the good results are just now. So we got to see how this will evolve during the next years. But for sure, the interest in the national team is getting bigger. Right now, it's tough to see because the fans are not allowed to come to the stadium, but the new stadium is almost finished, so everybody accepts that there will be more fans than before, because that was always the case here in Luxembourg.
And for Saturday's game, you mentioned, of course, that the manager, he's not particularly defensive. He's actually quite progressive in the way he plays, but obviously it's going to be away from home in Dublin, which is a difficult place to go for a team like Luxembourg. Do you expect he's going to at least tweak it a little bit and go slightly more defensive and conservative, or do you think he's actually going to stick with the way the team have been playing under him, particularly like in the Nations League?
I personally think there's a chance that they will try to surprise Ireland a little bit at the beginning to make pressure and yet try to play offensive. But the thing is, Luxembourg also during the last years they struggled a bit against teams like Ireland, so that are with strong players. So we got to see if they're physically too strong. Probably Luxembourg they will stick to defend and go to counterattacks. But I could see them try at least at the beginning to see, okay, what can we do here, with not just focusing on defense here.
Yeah, and I guess with Ireland being the first proper game, obviously you've got Qatar in a friendly first. But in terms of the interest in the Irish team, has there been much discussion about who is the most threatening player, about the Irish system, about the philosophy of our manager, Stephen Kenny? Has that been discussed, or has it been kind of fully focused on the Luxembourg side of things?
I think so far it's more focused on the Luxembourg side of things. We also got to say that 3 days after they play Portugal, which is a big thing for Luxembourg because a lot of people from Portugal live in Luxembourg. So I think it's a little bit because Ireland is the second game of 3. So probably first of all there was a focus on Qatar, and then it's more Portugal. But for sure the team and also the coach, they will be prepared for the Ireland game because they see that there could be a chance to make a good result here.
Well, we'll see what happens anyway on Saturday. I'm hoping anyway from our point of view that we do come out on top. But it has been interesting just to follow Luxembourg and the way football has improved there, particularly on the national team level. And maybe one day you might get to go to a major tournament. Who knows? That's obviously that's something we did for the first time in 1988. So, and of course we've had a few adventures there since. But Bob, thanks a million for taking the time, and enjoy Dublin, or as much of what you can amid the current restrictions.
Thank you very much.